There's a lot said about what ultra-processed food can do to our health. Well, now a new study finds it can also affect toddlers' behavior. Dr. Christopher Labos joins us. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Mitz.
So, Chris, what exactly did the study find?
So this was a part of a larger study called the Child Cohort Study. It's a Canadian study that's looking at kids across multiple Canadian cities, and it's following them over the time. So what this particular paper was about was a food questionnaire that was sent out to parents when their children were at age 3, and then a behavioral questionnaire that was sent out when their children were age 5. And what they found was is that the amount of ultra-processed foods that kids were eating at age 3 seemed to correlate with their behavioral symptoms at age 5, so that with every 10% change or increase in ultra-processed foods, their scores on this behavioral questionnaire went up by 1 point, meaning that they were being more hyper, for lack of a better term.
But you say seem to correlate. So how concerned should we be about this?
Well, you always have to be careful about studies like this because number one, you're relying on parents to accurately report what their children eat, and we are very bad at remembering what we eat, especially when you look at things long term. You're then also asking parents 2 years later to accurately report on their children's behavior, and parents are not always the best judge of their children's behavior because they're not always objective. And you're also assuming that nothing else has changed over the course of that 2 year interval, which is a big assumption. And so there's a correlation here, but it doesn't mean that one has actually led to the other.
But why would diet in early years like this be so important, Chris?
Well, so the theory itself is not inherently implausible. We know that ultra-processed foods are bad for you, right? I don't think there's any controversy there. So if you take one message away from this, please do not give your kids large amounts of junk food. That is not good for them. And so it's not inconceivable that it would have a negative effect on behavior. But it is kind of hard to see what the direct one-to-one relationship would be. So I see this as more of a speculative thing rather than something that's been, rather definitively proven.
Okay, so what you're saying is this study specifically looks at behavior, but there could be other factors that could explain behavioral differences, right?
Right, because, just think about it. What is another thing that's going to affect the quality of your diet? Well, part of it is your income, right? If you're better off, you can afford healthier foods. The problem we have now is junk food is inexpensive. Healthy food is quite expensive. So, when you have differences in income, differences in quality of care, differences in access to screen time, a lot of those things are going to impact behavior as well. So it's not just one isolated factor here. It's a whole complex mosaic of factors that are playing into it. And of course, the researchers just couldn't adjust for, all of those potential confounders.
And what about more immediate effects? Because you hear a lot of parents say, oh, don't give them any sugar, that sugar is going to make children hyper. Is this true?
No, it's absolutely not, actually. That's a very, very common myth. And that's part of the reason why I think I have some degree of skepticism here, because we've heard these things before. Don't give your kids sugar. Don't give your kids chocolate. Obviously, don't give your kids coffee. But here's the thing. None of those things are actually healthy, right? But the idea that they were going to make your kids hyper is not true. Sugar in particular, if anything, is more likely to make them drowsy because with sugar, you get a spike in insulin, and that tends to have a soporific effect. I mean, the reason why kids get hyper when you give them candy is because they're kids. You give them candy, they get hyper. You give them a puppy, they're going to get hyper. Any treat, any toy is going to make them hyper. They're kids. It's not the sugar itself that's having the biological effect.
Give me a puppy, I'll get hyper too. But,
exactly.
But overall, Chris, what can we learn from this study and studies like this?
Well, here's the thing. If you were somebody who was still on the fence about the, relative quality of ultra-processed foods, here's one more thing to tell you that they are bad for you. They are clearly not part of a healthy diet. We should all eat less of them. Are they causative or are they just reflective of a poor diet overall? That's harder to tease out, but the overarching message is they're not good for you. Eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less ultra-processed foods, especially when it comes to your kids.
Okay. Thank you very much for this, Chris.
My pleasure. You take care.